Oh hey everyone, Mad here. We're going to do an affliction guide. I did a duster guide before. Someone asked me to do an affliction guide. I'll do this affliction guide, and I'll also follow up with a quick demo guide, just to let you guys give my thoughts and opinions out there, so you guys can take what you want from them. Obviously, you don't have to follow exactly. First thing I'll lay out there is gear and everything, enchants, all that kind of stuff. Just sim it. Please just sim your own character. Corruption, sim your own character. You will find your own best setups, because you won't have the same gear as me. I'll go over there are some generic things you can look at, like trinkets and obviously azurite, but I'm not going to give you some idea of some stats, but for the most part, just do your own sims. Dungeon sims are a little bit more, put a little bit more thought into it, and you'll get a lot more out of it when you do that. For an example of dungeons, when you play Destro, you want a lot of haste. Just a lot of haste really actually helps out in a lot of dungeons, because you're not always going to have, you're like, just the haste is going to help out a lot, especially for single target when you're going to lose flashpoint and things like that. So stacking a lot of haste in dungeons might not sim really high, but it would be really good in dungeons, for that example. So now let's get into affliction. We'll start with corruption. Not corruption, my bad. With azurite, I don't have very good azurite for affliction, but the standard is your triple cascading. Racking, as you can see, I don't have any racking. Heart of Darkness is okay. And the only other one I would say that's like pretty decent is actually Inevitable Demise. Inevitable Demise, having one of these on pure single target is actually not too bad. Having obviously the more ads that you have on that, even if there's a couple ads, like example like Rathion, it's actually not too bad on Rathion. Probably not what I would run, but it's not too bad because you can abuse the pillars that come out and get a few drain lives off during that phase, and this obviously then gains a lot of some good value to it. So it's not awful, but it's not amazing. Your standard would just be triple cascading, triple racking. There are situations with Dreadful Calling where if you can run this with maybe VOP, you can fit in another cooldown. Kind of hard to do, but technically that is an option that happened on last year, the first boss of VP. So there are situations you can always think about that if you're just like a affliction person only. You only really like to play affliction, and you're like, oh man, this boss dies at 2 minutes 30, so I get my first CD out, but I really can't get my second CD out. Think about playing VOP only, then even thinking about playing VOP with one Dreadful Calling to get the cooldown, and maybe you can fit another cooldown, and it'll actually up your damage by a lot. That's Azurite, really basic. Remember, overwhelming power is very, very strong if you can get any overwhelming power. But obviously, racking cascading is more important if you have to choose. So there's that. Obviously for corruptions, because affliction to me is usually a lot of just pure single target, you can go here where I have a lot of stat ones where you just have versatile, crit, haste, mastery. All of the stats are pretty decent for affliction. Obviously you're just gonna do if you have more, let's say you have a lot of master procs, maybe you want to stack a little bit more haste or crit, you'll have to sim it. Obviously the sim will always tell you how to go, and obviously with a lot of sockets and ringing chance, you can actually easily swap your stats. Like I have a lot of haste here. I mean, I could remove all these gems and my 2 ringing chance, and this haste would go down to 1900, and I could boost another stat to this to 1800 crit or something, or 1700 crit. So you can make it all with a lot of sockets and a lot of and your 2 ringing chance. You can do some quick changes to your gear to get different stat weights. So just remember that. This is why sockets are so important and so strong right now in the current game, is they make very rapid changes to how your character can function in a situation. But yeah, obviously the other ones you could run and think about are tentacles. So tendies, right here. Oh wait, where's my bad? I know I have one right there. Tendies are obviously going to be really good, and then obviously any of your infinite stars pieces right there. Any infinite stars, tier 2, tier 3, tier 1. What else? Obviously haste procs, like I said, any stat ones. Those are kind of the ones you want. Gushing Wounds obviously is your best one if you're looking at corruption per point. If you could have 6 Gushing Wounds, you'd probably do a ton of damage on any situation as affliction. So whatever you have, sim it, test it, obviously play around with how you want your corruption. Right now I'm running at 39. I pretty much always run it under 40. We're gonna be going into farm next week. If I play any affliction, I might run a little extra because you are warlock, you are pretty tanky, and you can always banish or do anything to the Grand Illusion or thing from beyond. So you can do that. For trinkets, I do like Vita. Obviously Vita is very strong. I honestly really like Obsidian Claw. It's saved in my set for mainly for visions or, you know, like world questing or anything small. This thing is really nice. You can easily do a quick 400k burst in the open world, and it's just really nice and cheesy, especially for world PvP. I do like world questing and affliction for the multi-dotting and grouping of potential, especially when you kind of just with you know the current content. Like if I go do a world quest out in the world here, and it's a kill quest, you know, like this one where you have to kill some mobs and then feed them. Grouping all those mobs up and then quickly blasting with affliction, your kill speed is so nice, so I like that. And this helps with any mob with decent health, like a quick elite or anything like that, or like boss mob or anything. This will kind of solo it for you as affliction, so it's really nice. This is also why I stack a lot of haste on my gear. You do see some mastery from my Destro PvP, but yeah. For that, and then obviously usually your best single target will be Manifesto. With the current cloak rank, getting the versatility of this is really easy. You can stand like what feels like a mile away from people and get the versatility. The hard part is the crit. I find there are a lot of fights where you just start stacked on people, so if you are running Manifesto, try and think about that. Try and pre-stack away from someone. Like if you're like doing Zanish or whatever, you guys usually start near the stairs or to the right of the stairs. Try and put yourself off either farther right if your group's not like fully right, or off to the left, and try and get yourself a good crit from Manifesto. It'll be obviously better DPS, and you know you might not even have to move to get the versatility. Like I said, the crit range is not a lot harder, but you know you can run into runs where you're losing spin crit, which obviously you wouldn't want to if you're going for, you know, most damage. Obviously badges are okay, but I would say go Claw, go Manifesto, and I say go Vita. You could try Shredder, it's pretty good. Maybe Shredder would be better. I like the haste because I usually pair it with Obsidian Claw, and if you get this proc into Claw, you get like 2 to 3 extra ticks on Claw. It's insane. It's really strong. It's really fun. So that's what I go there. Oh, my last thing for kind of gear is essences. I would say, so I'll talk about Mythic Plus here. My initial thoughts on Mythic Plus is just don't play Affliction in Mythic Plus. It doesn't really have a great spot in it right now, because if you do low keys, it doesn't really do great burst. I mean, it is okay burst, but like all Warlock specs do great burst, so like if you're saying, oh, I do great bursts, you know, with cooldowns as Affliction, well, you probably do either more as Destro or more as Demo, so it's a little rough in that case. But, you know, if you just really like playing Affliction, or you're kind of just doing a low-key and you want to have some fun, I guess you can do it. I don't know if it's really that fun in Affliction, like, because if you're going back to, like, Legion, where Affliction was the king, and I played it a lot, low-keys were the worst for Affliction because you were so dot-based, and, you know, things would die before you got any real ramp out all your dots, so high keys felt really great for that reason. And honestly, I played, like, if I did 10s back in Legion, I played Destro, because Destro was just better at doing, like, you know, Kata into Channel Demon Fire. So I don't know, low keys don't make a lot of sense to me in my mind, but if you want to just fool around in some low keys, I would say that's fine. I guess if you're doing like 15 weekly and you really like playing Affliction, it's not too bad. Suggestions would be Blood of the Enemy, could be really, you know, quirky. Iris, obviously pretty good. You could run just a standard single target setup. Honestly, if you're doing, I might suggest running VOP Minor just for more dark layers. You don't really lose anything off this. Like, you could throw it instead of Iris, or if you're running Conflict instead of Conflict. Kind of go for some memes there. You could even run World Vein Major. Don't know if you'd want to, but you could. So there's some options for there. For single target, it was really only Condensed Life Force. You could try a World Vein setup with VOP Minor, one Dreadful Calling, and some Inevitable Truth traits to try and get some really short dark glares if you wanted to go for some, you know, just some jokey builds depending on what your corruption is. And Evil Truth does have some places for warlocks. Right now, Destro can use it really well to reset Havoc and get rolling Havoc stacks. You could kind of try it on Demo for, you know, even shorter tyrants. Affliction, you could try it, but you'd have to run World Vein or some other major to kind of make it work. So, because obviously, if you're running condensed, stay with the 3 minutes. It lines up perfectly and works perfectly. So, yeah, these are your standard single target. There are some variations, like obviously conflicts. Oh, for any spec, Iris conflicts. They're just stat-based ones. They'll always be good. Obviously, World Vein, with the more people using it, will always be good at stats. Intellect's never been. For Breath of the Dying, I will say that's probably going to be your best one. However, don't forget about Formless Void. Formless Void it does have some crazy uptimes because a lot of healers and tanks use Crucible of Flame. Crucible of Flame being a 30-second cooldown means they're going to be constantly using it, and if like 2 of them, 3 of them have it, you're going to have really nice uptime on this, and it can outweigh Breath of the Dying or outweigh one of the others. So just sim it. There is on raid bots, there's a way to change the value, test it at 70%, 80%, 90%, all the way down to like, you know, 50%. Like, you know, you as you look, you can go look through your past fights, see, or like play with it for a raid night, see what your average uptime is on different bosses, and then get an idea of where you're going to be sitting, and then you can work around, you know, what you think would be, you know, where you think you are, and then how good this is actually for you. So there's your essences. We went over Azurite, Corruption, obviously pretty standard for most situations for almost any class, I would say. Your gear. Quickly do a quick run over of talents. Death Bolt is still your go-to. Drain Soul is pretty decent for anything that has, like, you know, sniping ads. Can I give you one off the current raid? Let me do a quick look at the current raid to give you an idea of an example of what this would be good. Hivemind probably would be the best one. Dressigath wouldn't be awful. Il'gynoth would actually be probably the best. Il'gynoth would probably be the best because you have the ads and they're going to be dying, and if you're Drain Soul sniping them, you can get a lot of shards and a lot of uptime. With your UAs, like, just get a ton of uptime on the UAs, so that is a situation where Drain Soul can be really good. Obviously, Absolute Corruption in, like, Dressigath can be really good if you're not going for, like, max boss damage. For N'Zoth, it's okay, because you can get really nice IS stacks on it. Hive Mind, I guess it could be, Absolute Corruption could be pretty good to have both dots on the boss and maintain good uptime. And yeah, that's kind of about it. But yeah, anything like, obviously any multi-dot council fights, Absolute Corruption. Ride is only used if you're using some sudden onset Azurite Corruption cheese build where you're going for like on Hive Mind, if you wanted to go like triple onset with, you know, racking or cascading combo, you could do something like that. And then this is where you'd run Writhe because you're pumping all your damage basically into Agony. You could try something with that. Not super ideal in my opinion, but you know, you could do that if you wanted to go for some just fun different gameplay. I'm gonna skip the 45 tree, pretty obvious. Or actually I won't skip it. Burning Rush used almost the entire time. Demon Skin is almost strictly PvP. Dark Pack is used if you're doing a fight where there's low movement and you just want the ability to soak some damage and help your healers out. Like if you're seeing a fight where you're not using Burning Rush like almost ever, try run Dark Pack. You can use it literally off cooldown, and I guarantee you it'll be better for your healers. Obviously, learning the fight, understanding when damage comes out, and using this at an appropriate time will be better than just willy-nilly throwing it. However, I guarantee you just willy-nilly throwing it on some fights will be better than not like spec'd into the Burning Rush and never using it. So, like a good example would be like Shadhar. Shadhar's really small room. He has a breath. He has some AoE effects. Dark Pack would be really good for that. Obviously, if you get targeted by the ad and you have to not having Burning Rush could kind of suck, but you can obviously make up with that with Demonic Circle or Gateway. So things like that. Think about it. Could always really be good. So is ripped from last season. Hopefully this gets fixed next expansion. or yeah, like last expansion, it got gutted to this expansion. Hopefully it gets fixed. Hopefully it goes back to 2 additional targets, and they, you know, at least try that, because they did the double whammy on it, nerf the damage, nerf actually the triple whammy, nerf the talent, nerf the damage of So the Seed's flatline, like, or baseline, and then nerfed, and then we lost our artifact. And as soon as you lose the artifact, I think Affliction got significantly worse, and then it kind of just ate some more nerfs on top of it because it was the king, which sucks, but, you know, it happens. We still are pretty good with our other specs, so. Phantom Singularity obviously is your go-to for single targets, the only single target increase here. It's also really good AoE, especially if you pop Dark Glare correctly with it and get some good AoE. If you're going for like max AoE, my suggestion is use this at the like almost like first or second global, like put out Haunt, put out 2 UAs, get your cascading buff, get your Haunt and UA on the target, then throw Phantom Singularity so you have max damage from Phantom Singularity. And obviously you want to make sure you're Dark Glaring this before it falls off. So as long as you're Dark Glaring it right around the 10-second mark of this being on, it'll be good. And obviously you want to have it on early so that way it's proccing its AoE damage over and over and over, or, you know, on all the targets. For single target, I normally put this on last. It's like one of my last globals to put on. Don't know if that's the optimal play, but that's how I play, and it works out usually for me. So I will mention Vile Taint. It is actually pretty decent in AoE. Obviously having a 20-second cooldown, you basically have to look at this as if you use 2 of these, is it better than 1 of these? For the most times it is, especially if you're doing big AoE. So if you're doing some fun keys, or like, you know, you're doing a 15 with your guild or something, and they're just, it's a week like this week where it's Sanguine, Grievous, Fortify packs. You could really do some decent packs as long as you're being smart with Sanguine. You could run this, and if you're using it multiple times in a pack, I almost guarantee you it'll outvalue this. And even on burst, these are comparable if Vile Taint's not better. If you use, just remember to use this right before you go into your Dark Glare, or like, you know, use it like you would Vile Taint. Make sure you're extending it with Dark Glare. Obviously remember this has a cast time and a soul shard, so you just gotta remember that. Don't burn all your soul shards, you know, popping UAs into a target and then you're like, oh crap, I don't have Vile Taint. And if you're doing single target, UA is better than Vile Taint on single target. Remember that for shards. If you get 6 shards and you want to throw in a Vile Taint before you pop your Dark Glare in single target, obviously that's not a DPS loss. However, just don't be like, oh, 4 UAs, now I got a Vile Taint. No. Just put 5 UAs. It'll be more damage than Vile Taint. I promise. So there you go. Obviously for the 75 tree, I should ignore Dark Fury. If you looked at my Desert Guide, you'll understand my reasoning. Just ignore it, not worth it. Mortal Coil is great for the healing. It's about the same healing as a Health Stone, 5% less. Really, really nice. And obviously it does have the added benefit of being an incapacitate, so the worms in under you could CC with this and, you know, stop their breath. Really good. Obviously Demonic Circle is really good is pretty much going to be your go-to in raiding, and there are actually some dungeons, like an example is Toldagor, the first boss. If you get hit by, or if you're getting targeted by his Unburrow, you can stand away from your port, and you can port right as he comes up and dodge the damage, like people are doing with dashes and other things. So yeah, it can be good in Mythic Plus. And also in that exact same dungeon, there are some, like on the last boss, because you're ranged, you can actually stand out and use this to you know, maintain some good positioning if you have to move it also. Yeah, this could be pretty good. For the last tree, Shadowy Embrace, pretty. When you're using Drain Soul, it can get good uptime, but it is 1% less damage than Haunt. So I would say just run Haunt. It's usually probably better, but maybe with Dark Soul this could be like just better, because if you get any downtime on this, you probably won't with, you know, Drain Soul, Shadow Embrace. So I'd say just run Haunt. Grimoire only used in PvP if for whatever reason you're playing Affliction in PvP. My opinion, you either use Haunt or Grimoire. Grimoire is actually some really nice damage in PvP right now. You must Creeping Death, Soul Conduit, you just ignore them. Just run Dark Soul. The haste is really, really nice, especially with the way you can abuse it with the Claw Trinket. Honor Talents, Nether Ward, Demon Armor, Gateway Mastery. Endless Affliction's pretty good. Curses actually have some decent uses in PvP. You have that benefit granted. You do lose. Actually, you don't have any curses. Never mind. You are fine because they removed agony from being a curse, so you're fine. You can use cursive tongues against like Destrolux if you're playing affliction as affliction. PvP is affliction, my bad. And you can just cursive tongues and get some, annoy them. Actually, kind of help yourself out from dying. So. Yeah, for tips and tricks for affliction, I don't really have any. Like, there's not a lot I can say. Don't be greedy with your death bolt. Just use it. It reapply dots, 1 UA, or cast one. The rule of thumb is basically cast before you the global before you press death bolt should always be a UA, and then you'll be fine. And obviously, make sure you have your dots up. Now, obviously, if they're really low duration, you can hold UA, get them reapplied, then just UA Death Bolt. That's what I would say. Rule of thumb, just make sure you're pressing UA into Death Bolt. If Death Bolt comes up like right now and I have no UAs on the target, I'm just going to wait. Okay, I get 1 shard, UA Death Bolt. And that's the rule of thumb you're going to go with. Obviously, think about fight times. Think about when you're going to be using Dark Glare. Remember that you have a 1 minute difference between your cooldowns. I would say like 75% of the time, 80% of the time you're gonna be stacking these. So this is basically like if Dark Souls is gonna become a 3-minute cooldown, you're just gonna hold it. However, if there is a fight, a great example would be the last fight of EP Queen Ajara. You would Dark Glare on opener with everything. You would then Dark Glare second phase. So you'd hold everything, but then you wouldn't Dark Glare again. So you wouldn't Dark Glare immediately after 3 minutes. So you could get a Dark Soul in, then it can come off cooldown, and then you'll have both for Dark Glare again. So think about it. Always remember to think about your fight times and how are you going to be saving Dark Glare at all for an extended period of time. Like N'Zoth is probably a fight you don't want to look at if you're going to play Affliction on N'Zoth. You're going to want to pay attention to. When am I casting Dark Glare? Because if you're casting Dark Glare just like on Psychus or on N'Zoth for damage phases, think about okay, well I'm holding my cooldown for 4 minutes. That means I can fit in another Dark Glare without losing it on my cooldowns. So just remember that and think about that as you're playing with your cooldowns. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Affliction. It's pretty straightforward. My general thoughts are this spec is really weak right now. It's fine on single target, so 2 fights on the current rate are pretty fine. I do think it's pretty okay on Il'gynoth, but I don't know. Right now, the current state of Destro and the current state of Demo, I think Affliction's just a little in a rough spot. Things I'd love to see are almost just go back to Legion, but not strictly like Legion. Legion was actually, I think people don't understand Warlock and Legion, or at least Affliction and Legion. It came down to a lot of the artifact. The artifact was very, very strong, and the fact that you could have all your traits doubled constantly, basically, for a lot of the fights in that expansion, made it very, very strong, because you basically had what everyone else had, but ×2. So, and obviously it just became really crazy and really strong, and obviously one of the things you have to remember is it was a multi-dot spec that benefited from quick dying ads, and 80% of the fights had that in a lot of the last few raid tiers. The one tier I didn't play Affliction was a lot was TOS, and TOS is probably the one of the it was still, Affliction was obviously still great, don't get me wrong, but I still think it was the weaker tier between Nighthold and Argus. Those 2 raids had just crazy advantageous fights for Affliction, and that's one thing you gotta remember. The fights benefited the spec because it benefited the artifact, and then the artifact made it insane. So I think if you just reverted all the nerfs that Affliction had, would it definitely be stronger? Yes, of course. I think the rework should get reverted. I think right now the problem with Warlock is all 3 specs, while they are different and they play differently, they all do the same thing in the nutshell. They're all cooldown based. They don't do any really consistent damage out of it, and I think Affliction is the biggest culprit of this. Is it just doesn't feel right for Affliction to be cooldown based, at least from my experiences of it. So I would say remove Dark Glare. Doesn't need to be part of the spec. Buff Agony a lot, buff Corruption a lot, buff Siphon Life, buff UA. Please buff Sow the Seeds. Obviously, Warlock talents are disgusting, as I showed you. Like, the last two, these should be way more interesting. You could even remove this. Like, you could change this whole row. Screw Dark Soul. You could make it do something completely different. You could just remove it and add another passive, or change this whole row. Like, I think this one's a cool concept. I think Creeping Death is a cool concept. The Legendary is cool. I think this is a cool concept. Maybe make this like 30%, make this better. I don't know, like, give some variety here, buff these, make them stronger. I think this one actually doesn't even need to be changed. I think the thing that holds us back is Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, and UA. Because don't do a lot of damage. Like, UA is probably the only one, but like, right now you don't want UA to tick faster. Remove UA from this because it's your 10% damage buff. Buff Agony, Corruption, and Siphon Life to do more damage. And then this is probably a great talent, in my opinion. I think Grimoire is a little lackluster. I'd love to see it do splash AoE so you have some more AoE in your kit. Because right now these two feel single targety, and this one feels kind of like your only AoE option, but it's pretty garbage for AoE. So, or it's not AoE, right? So like, I'd love to see this be AoE. I'd also love to see a world where Affliction is the petless, like Hunter have with Marksman. The petless Warlock would actually be a cool concept, and I think they could look into it. Maybe make this a baseline ability. Demo or Warlock has no pet. They get interrupt baseline. They get and then they get to pick like one of the buffs that you can get. Like, so you can either get an additional dispel, you can get a health, like, you know, the health buff shield from your Voidwalker. You get a seduce, like that is like almost like a. Obviously, it's going to be like seduction from your demon, but it's going to be like blind, where you're not channeling it on someone, you're just throwing it on them, and it's the long CC. I think that'd be a cool concept. You could also, if you want, you could. I've heard this. It'd be crazy, but you could do so. So Affliction becomes the petless class, and it would get like, it would be able to shoot, and then Grimoire, the talent, would basically become pick one of these abilities, and like, so Voidwalker would basically become Trance for from Druids, from Boomkin Druids. Imp would be a dispel. Fell Hunter would be your interrupts. Succubus would be, either you could do it like the knockback that the Succubus has, or you could just do it as a spawn CC kind of ability that would not be really good in PvE, but it would be good in PvP. And then, am I missing a pet? I don't think I am. No, that's it. Okay, so you could do something like that. For this row's fine. I mean, obviously, I think Demonic Circle, I think the Rose is coming back baseline, so we'll see what they put here. Please buff Sow the Seeds. Please. Make this baseline, buff it, like put it back to 2, make it baseline, put something else here. I don't know, like, this whole row feels bad, because the problem is, if you do buff Sow the Seeds and it becomes good, well, then you just have your single target option, your AoE option, which is fine, but there's no variety, because you're never going to take Vitality over Sow the Seeds if it's back to where it was. Kind of feels bad. This is a fine row. I don't mind this row at all. I think this row's fine. I just think some Writhe and Agony needs a little love. I think it's a little weak. I think Absolute Corruption is totally fine where it is. I think it fits its identity really, really well. I think Nightfall needs a lot of love. I think Dragon Soul needs a lot of love. And I think Deathbolt is fine. I just wish Dragon Soul was back to baseline and they put something else in here, I guess, for talents. But yeah, that's my hope with Affliction, is they remove Dark Glare. They buff your base stats. Remove Shadowbolt. Bring back Drain, and just make the spec a lot more consistent damage. It doesn't need to be spiky damage. That's the one thing I think is really rough right now in the current game, is with double on-use trinkets being common. You know, the game is just really spiky. You look at the best classes of Warlock, like Destro Warlocks, Demo Warlocks, Fire Mages, Boomkins, Hunters. That's really spiky damage. And people are running towards shorter and shorter cooldowns because their cooldowns are just their best abilities. So obviously, like, that's how they should function. But the fact that they're basically saying, okay, well, we do, like, you know, 1/10 of the damage inside or outside of cooldowns instead of inside. Let's just run it short of cooldowns as we can get and just do, you know, crazy damage, well then we do none. Crazy damage, then we do none. It's just like, I don't know. I don't think that's... I think gameplay is fine and can be fun, and you can do it really well, and their fights can be well designed around it. However, I do like the more, sometimes having a more consistent, like Shadow Priest, this expansion felt like they did a lot of consistent damage, and they could kind of like, you know, they weren't cooldown blocked, where I think a lot of classes are. So I'd love to see them change affliction to be not cooldown dependent. I think Desu is fine where it is. Obviously, Rolling Havoc, Flashpoint need the spec is going to feel a lot worse without those traits, and then obviously Demo. I'll talk about that in the next video. I know I did a lot of rambling here. Hopefully, you got the information you were looking for from Affliction, or for Affliction Links. Yeah, if you guys want me to remake this and just be a little bit more polished and focused, let me know. Or if you need any other information, just comment below and I'll try and answer anything. Affliction really to me is straightforward. You just need to know what your trinkets are, what your Azurite is, what your essences are. But also the spec's just really weak right now. So play it if you want to have a little bit of fun, if you enjoy the spec, or you want some variety away from Destro or Demo. But other than that, I would say just, you know, this spec's kind of like just ripped until next expansion, and that's all you can say for Warlocks right now. Hope you guys enjoy. Hope it helps anyone that needed any help. Yeah, and enjoy.